right, welcome to Capecast. This is a very special edition of Capecast. It's always fun when we get to talk a new DC movie. We just got out of our fan screening of The Batman. We saw it in IMAX just north of Atlanta. Brandon, how you doing this evening?
I'm good. A little tired. It's 12:30 in the morning. We're recording.
That's right.
But you know, I've got
These
I've
are
got
the
my
important
water.
things.
I've got my water,
Yeah.
so it's good. I'll make it. I'll make it.
Good.
It's good to hydrate for times like these.
It's true. Times like these is always nice to pop up a Wolf Cola.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
before we get started here, hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and notification bell so you can stay up to date on all the videos we were putting out. We are on Twitter at Capecast Show. We're always talking all things geek over there. And we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/CiNEMACHiNE. Appreciate all the support we get there. Well,
yes, we do.
How do you want to go about this? Do you want to do?
So I think we just do reactions. I mean, we'll save spoiler talk for another time. We'll get some other guys on here and kind of do more in-depth discussion. I think because right now, I imagine we're going to put this out pretty quickly. Not a ton of people will have seen it, so we'll probably need to keep it as spoiler-free as possible for those that haven't seen it yet. Yeah, so we'll just kind of talk about kind of general things we like, didn't like, whatever overall feelings, and then we'll leave the nitty-gritty for a later in-depth episode.
Cool.
Does that
Let's
sound
do
cool?
It.
Cool. All right.
Do we want to do initial reaction?
So Ryan, as we mentioned, we both saw this together with our wives.
Yes.
And let's just preface this in terms of kind of us going into this movie, how we were feeling, what our expectations were.
That's a good idea.
Okay, you go.
So I told Brandon we got dinner before we went to go see this movie, and I told him that my fear about this movie, or my expectation for this movie, was that I was going to walk out of the theater and think that was a great movie, but it didn't feel like a Batman movie or a comic book movie. And that turned out to be partly true.
Partly true.
Yeah. Which we'll discuss in a second here. Brandon, what about you? What were you kind of?
I just felt like
expecting?
I was kind of similar. I felt like because I am a fan of this type of movie, like as far as the tone of this movie.
We like our dark, that's for sure.
I do like the darkness. I like Matt Reeves. I like the cast. So I was really as far as expectations, I expected all that to be solid. We've obviously talked about our kind of reservations or dislikes with the actual suit of Pattinson.
Have we mentioned that?
Well, maybe once or twice.
For the first-time viewers, anytime we talk about this movie, it's something along the lines of, "Yeah, I'm really stoked for that movie." I mean, the suit looks awful, but I'm really stoked for that movie. There's always the little clarification.
That there's the asterisk.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of felt similar. I felt like I was going to walk out. It was going to be like, yeah, it was a really good movie. As a film, standalone film, great movie. Didn't feel like it was like, like this is my thinking before seeing it. Like probably not the most comic book movie, very grounded, more so grounded than like the Nolan stuff. Suit was not great, and wish it was Affleck. That was kind of gonna be the gist of my expectations going into it. And I've tried to kind of temper that with.
It should be noted that after the movie was over, they handed us kind of like special editions of Long Halloween Part 1 comics. And Brandon was handed his, and he went back up to the guy who handed it to him and said, "Do you have the Ben Affleck version?" And the guy kind of looked at him like he was insane. And then Brandon just kind of walked away.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. So that was my expectations going in. Now, we've seen the movie. Expectations met. Expectations exceeded. Expectations failed.
Failed expectations.
Lowered expectations.
This movie was very flat for me. That's the best word I can use to describe it. It wasn't bad.
Yeah.
But it was just very, like, tonally, it was very flat for me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm very shocked because I don't know, like, it kind of felt to me like, I think the article was tweeted recently, like it was like a little over 5 years ago that Matt Reeves signed on for this one.
Yeah.
So I really and that certainly played into my expectations. I was really kind of expecting. I like everything he's done that I've seen.
Yeah.
And I was really kind of expecting this to be a real, like, Batman love letter-ish type movie. Like 5 years, he probably poured his heart and soul into it. And I was kind of expecting that to really ooze out of the screen for me, like the Batman side of things. And that just didn't happen. It just really felt like a lot of people were talking about making the Seven and Zodiac comparisons before. That's kind of like the low hanging fruit as far as expectations.
Well, he even referenced it as inspiration.
Yeah, and
Reeves did.
It certainly is.
Certainly, definitely, I would say mimics them to a lesser extent in terms of execution. Like it's like it feels like in terms of the way, like it definitely has a similar look and feel and vibe to those movies, but like a bargain version of those movies, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yes. I think that it's especially Seven, like the Seven Deadly Sins things, kind of jumping from crime scene to crime scene.
Right.
Like, I felt like this was a detective movie wrapped in a Batman,
Yeah.
coding.
Well, it's a similar approach that was done with Joker, where it was like, we're going to do Taxi Driver, but with the Joker. And to me, it felt like that one was done it was executed a lot better. And it rested on an amazing performance. Whereas this one, there just wasn't, like, it felt
a lot of
like,
overacting in this movie too.
It was like very try hard. That was kind of what my reaction was. Like, man, this movie is so try hard. Like, they really are trying to do something. Like I felt like they thought this movie was better than it is in terms of, like, it's beautiful. Yeah. It's got some good hand-to-hand combat, and it's not bad.
Like you mentioned, was awesome. They had some very cool, like POV, point of view shots in this movie, especially in the car chase scene. His gliding scene, they were kind of unique.
Yeah.
And then obviously just like the cityscape stuff was great.
Yeah.
But
I think technically, and the score's pretty good. Technically the movie exceeds on those levels, but for me it fails in the story department because I don't know, the story just didn't do much for me. Like, I wasn't really intrigued. I was kind of bored with it.
He ends up the end of the movie and the beginning of the movie it's like status quo, maybe a little worse. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. The stakes with kind of like they don't really do a great job of, without getting into specifics, like the Riddler's victims, like they don't do a good job of it's not like you feel bad for them.
Yeah, well,
They like
and
kind of
it's
undercut a lot of stuff.
there's that, and again, like the aping of these other movies that they're drawing inspiration from are just so superior in comparison,
Yeah,
and so much more of an like an more art driven and more like
sure.
they're just very, very refined and kind of like if you're gonna draw that inspiration and try and be like, oh, we're doing Batman, but with a it's essentially I think we may have mentioned this coming out, like it's Seven or Zodiac with a Batman skin on top of it, but bumped down to a PG-13, bumped down to like some very lackluster performances that don't really like move the needle. And
Yeah.
especially like when it comes to like when you think of like Paul Dano, like I was stoked about him going into this
Prisoners.
movie,
All I had in my
and
mind was Prisoners going into this movie
he
with him.
just hams it up, tries so hard to do like you can see him like just trying to get something that's like visceral,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and
it just
even the sequences where he's like wearing the mask, which like there's not a lot of don't see much of his face if you've seen the
yeah,
trailers, but
yeah,
like even that like just feels like I'm like picturing his face underneath there, and I'm just like, man, calm down.
yeah. Yeah, it's just abrasive. Like it doesn't feel it's just not it's try hard. That's the best
Yeah.
phrase I can use for it. It's like, and that's kind of even Pattinson's like Bruce or Batman. It's very like it's not very
Like I
convincing to
get
me.
it, I get it. Kurt Cobain, emo,
Yeah,
depressed.
yeah. I mean, I thought I thought Andy Serkis was good. Um,
Very limited amount of time in
limited
the
amount, but
yeah.
he and Zoe Kravitz
He was
also
probably the most interesting to me, and he got like next to no screen
very
time.
little screen
Yeah.
time. Yeah. Yeah, I just felt like it was so much wasted potential, and again, I'm not like saying it's a bad movie. It's a fine movie,
Yeah,
but
you gotta
when it
understand too, like before we start talking about this too deep, like we love this material, so we have high expectations for the material.
Mhm.
So a lot of the stuff that we're saying, like, kind of reflects that, I guess, is I
Yeah.
just want to kind of make that clear, you know.
It's kinda like but it and even just looking at the Batman cinematically, like it's very I know people for whatever reason, I feel like people are hating when people compare this movie to the Nolan stuff, but I mean, it's just a more grounded version of Nolan. I don't understand why people can't admit that that's what it is.
There's
Um,
also even like well, a lot of plot points that kind of
yeah,
track with Begins and Dark Knight Rises. Like even Dark
even
Knight
well,
actually.
even
Yeah.
Dark Knight with the Riddler, like with the like a lot of his stuff just is
Yeah.
super reminiscent of
The
Ledger's Joker,
Joker
but
camera stuff. Yeah.
so much like just meh, like in
Yeah.
comparison. Yeah, I felt like if I'm thinking about like live action Batman movies, I would still rank so many of them above this movie. After initial react, like I don't even know, and that's I wouldn't have expected to say that based on the trailers, based on the tone. I was really expecting something to kind of like knock my socks off, and at the end of the day, it was just like,
I
okay,
was expecting
it's
something, I
very
don't know, like very more unique than it was, I guess.
yeah, it just doesn't move the needle. And there's so much to me hyperbole around this after the critic, reactions and people saying, "Oh, this is your new favorite Batman and this is the best Batman movie." And there's always going to be stuff like that coming out of
Sure.
every
I mean,
movie.
everybody has their own taste too,
But
but
yeah, and some people just have the wrong taste. But um and that's
Al?
fine. um No. I would never discourage anyone from seeing it. Again, it's not a bad movie. I think that when put, up on the pedestal and comparing it to other things that it's trying to go up against and take inspiration from and yada yada yada, I just feel like it just didn't. There's a lot of factors for me that I'm holding it up to that I'm just like, yeah, I just I can't give it a pass personally because I feel like these other movies did it better. And I don't know. I wish like every 25 minutes or so. And that's another thing. This movie is very long.
It long. Katie and I were talking about
felt
this on the way
long.
home. I had there were multiple kind of like mental time checks for me in this movie. If anybody's watched Zack Snyder's Justice League, for reference, for me, that movie felt shorter than this movie did.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not.
No. Another hour and plus. But yeah, every 25 minutes while I was watching, I was like, all right, how am I feeling about this? And every time I would do that, I'm like, it's not hitting it. Like I was just wanting it to do something for me, move me, make me feel something for these characters, make me feel something
There's no feels in this movie. Not for Bruce, not for the relationship with him and Alfred, not for him, for Zoe Kravitz's character, like nothing. And there's a couple of moments where they even try, like, and it just nothing. Like,
yeah,
I was very flat through this whole movie.
Yeah,
even like non-emotional stuff. There was maybe one moment that I can remember where there was something like cool that happened where I was like, oh, that's cool. Like,
what was it?
I don't want to spoil it.
Okay.
No spoilers.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I get a lot of. I mean, that's one of the main reasons I love Zach's stuff is like every single one of those movies that he did, I tear up at some point, at least once.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of funny, like everybody kind of like has fallen in love with this grounded take, and like like if it's grounded, people can relate to it, and like and it could be real. But for me, like I watch a movie like this that's completely flat, very grounded, and I get no feels compared to the Snyder stuff that's intergalactic at this point, and I get all the feels.
Yeah, there was just not a lot of. I don't know. I couldn't. I mean, and I love the character of Batman, Bruce, all these characters, really, this whole Gotham verse. But there just wasn't a hook for me. And I expected it. I expected it to have some really like. I didn't necessarily expect it to have like any kind of groundbreaking like action, and that's honestly some of the high points for me would be. Like I said, the hand-to-hand combat, that
the car chase
sequence,
scene,
car chase was cool.
People are talking about.
But like the stuff that I expected and knew it was going to deliver on, it didn't deliver on, and that's like the psychological aspect of it, the character drama of it all. All those things just fell flat.
And there's a lot of time. There's a lot of time spent on. A lot of the 3 hours felt like it was spent on building up a couple of little twists that ultimately turned out not to be twists.
Yeah.
So it just like,
well, it's like
could have been a lot shorter. Like, because the twists don't pay off.
That
like
they don't, and they're not like if you have like had any kind of association with the world of Gotham, none of this is surprising. Like, it's not. I mean, spoilers are not even a thing. I don't even know. Like, it to me, it's like, what are you going to spoil about the movie? Like, I don't even know what to spoil.
That's a good point.
But because I don't know the it's just kind of I don't know.
This movie is very much. You watch the trailers. it describes the plot very well.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of like there's really not a ton of twists beyond what you see in the trailers, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
It's kind of face value.
I didn't even watch. Here's the thing. I haven't. They put out, I think, 2 trailers since the one that I watched, and I felt like I saw everything in the first trailer or 2 trailers or whatever. I guess 2 trailers, the fandom trailer, and then
We
I
saw,
guess
the 2 we watched was that one, and then when was the second one?
it could have been the next fandom. I don't remember,
Yeah.
but
Probably.
But yeah, and I felt like I saw the whole movie in both those trailers, but because I was like, beat by beat, like remembering, oh yeah, this is about to happen. Yeah,
Right.
this is gonna happen. This is gonna happen. That's just the nature of trailers. I get that, but at the same light, just wasn't like I said, I was waiting for this movie to impress me and surprise me and move me, and it just
and B end.
and just end. Yeah, because towards the end, I was just like, oh, come on, let's just.
I did the third act for this movie was the weakest by far. I will say, if I was gonna rate my favorite part, it's probably the first 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
After that, it's just kind of a slow decline, and then the third act.
And they really, I don't know, like even the
beginning.
beginning.
The third act feel kind of like phoned in for you? Like, I don't know. It just felt like it's tough to talk about without spoilers.
And there were some things that came out of nowhere. Maybe I just missed as far as some of the third act, not like not resolve, but developments that I was like, what did they set that up? I don't remember.
Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about, because I thought the same thing, and no, I don't think they set it up.
Yeah.
It was just there.
Yeah. But it could have been some dialogue that I just glossed over. I was probably doing one of my internal checks. I'm doing like this. Is this good? Nope, it's not. Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, overall, and I know there's so many compounding factors that go into my feelings toward this movie, and some of them are not fair.
Have anything to do with the movie.
Some of them are not fair to the movie itself, and I recognize that. But
you're self-proclaimed Snyder.
That's just that's just my sensibilities. And I told Melissa this on the way home. I was like, I would not be as hard on this movie if I was getting things that I wanted in addition. Like, but this is going to be the Batman that's going to be on the screen for the next 10 years, probably.
Yeah.
Or more, 15
maybe
years.
15 if Matt Reeves gets 5 per.
And that's another, like we were saying earlier, that's another, like, little negative point towards the movie. It's like, it took 5 years to make this thing. Like, that was what was so bad. Like, I was expecting so much more, like, story-wise, I was expecting so much more depth than we got, because it took so long, and you're dealing with a character like the Riddler. Like, it's like the time was spent with the intricacies of each crime itself, rather than like the overarching, like, what was, Yeah, I mean, they kind of promoted this as this like crazy psychological detective noir type movie, and at the end of the day,
it's really cut and dry.
Yeah, it's got the look of those movies, but as far as the substance, it's just not there. And especially when you look at, like, I hate to keep comparing it, but you look at like Seven and Zodiac, you would think, okay, this makes sense. You're going to do a Riddler that's going to be kind of like the Zodiac, kind of like the Seven Deadly Sins killer. Did he have a name? I don't remember if he had an actual name.
I don't know.
But like Kevin Spacey in that movie, like those performances, even though the Zodiac killer is kind of faceless in that movie, but like they're terrifying. Like, they're very subtle in terms of performance. And this portrayal was just cringe to me. Like, it just didn't work for me.
Yeah. If anybody's seen the movie and is watching this, his last little video that he makes, I was like, it maybe goes into a little bit of the third act thing, but it was just totally cringe. I was like, what?
Yeah.
This just doesn't line up with the character at all, performance-wise.
Yeah.
Everything before it. I don't know.
I think that was probably my biggest disappointment. If I had to, kind of pick one, was I expected so much of Paul Dano, and I just felt like it was like, it's one of those instances where you hear some sort of casting, you're like, oh, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then in this movie, it was just like, it just didn't click. It didn't work.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I also wanted to, I mean, we've talked about it before with the trailers, but as far as like, first, let's talk like kind of grounded superhero movies versus non-grounded superhero movies, I guess. And we talked a little bit about this on text or over text, but I don't understand. I understand that WB would want to go back to the well after the success of the Dark Knight trilogy.
And Joker.
But I don't, in my mind at least, like superheroes are very fantastical. Like they're just, it's not real. Like people read comics is not real. Like,
yeah,
isn't it like there's no movie you can show me, this one included, where you can ground even Batman enough for me to believe, oh, okay, all right, yep, this could happen. This could happen. He's doing it.
Yeah.
So
just the grappling gun in itself, it's like, it don't work.
Right. Like I don't know. So why would you want to take out? Why would you want to relate to the audience on that level instead of letting the comic book material be what it actually is and draw relations emotionally, or whatever characters are going through struggle wise? Like, I don't know. I feel like you're undercutting what makes comics when you just kind of skin a movie like this in these.
I mean, I think you answered it earlier. It's just money. It's like, this is the thing that was successful for us with this property, as far as the Batman is concerned. Let's go back to that. Because at the end of the day, on a very grand scale, I can see them as executives being like, all right, we did the Snyder thing for a little bit, and critically, whether it's legit or not, as far as how it went about, but and all the politicking and things that went on behind the scenes, and bastardizations of visions and yada yada yada, all that, they're like, all right, that didn't work for us for what we wanted, especially when you're comparing it across the way with Marvel and what they're doing. So all right, our biggest property that we have is Batman. We were the most successful at doing Batman during our time when we were doing it with Nolan, super grounded. And this could have been just Reeves' take. Could have just been what Reeves wanted to do. He wanted to tell a more grounded story, because by all accounts, the story that they had already developed with Affleck was not grounded.
Right.
And so he wanted to do this, and they were like, yeah, I mean, it worked in the past. Let's just do it again. Let's, because this movie doesn't feel like a very expensive movie in comparison. So they're like, yeah, I mean, it's not a huge gamble. It's Batman, and people are going to go see a Batman movie.
Right.
And so we just made $1 billion with Joker, similar approach. So let's do it with Batman again. And that's what happened. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing that I don't understand. And I've only seen a couple of people online talking about this, but when you compare this to the other grounded approach movies, I just feel like they're just better. They're just done better. I mean, this may be prettier, but as far as like having well-rounded characters and great performances and great story and hitting you in the feels and just moving you one way or the other, like they do those things where this
Batman Begins 1,000 feet better than this movie for me. Like,
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
not close.
Yeah, I know for sure. It does. I mean, and that's the thing is like, that's why it just feels kind of derivative, because of all that baggage that comes with having to live up to those movies that I just think um, were done better. And I don't know. We talked about it before, but that was what we were kind of like, man. I know that a lot. There's like there seems to be two sides of the Batman camp. One camp
Mhm.
that only likes Batman when he's fighting grounded villains, and one
Yeah.
camp, or maybe another camp that
He's
likes
a
both.
detective, all right?
Yeah, a lot of
He's
people
the
will
world's
prefer
best
Batman.
detective.
I mean, I get the people as far as the idea that, hey, Batman's a human. I like him better when he's fighting more human-ish characters instead of these metahumans or aliens. I feel like he can hold his
Sure.
own better when he's fighting people more as, up to par with him. But what they were kind of teeing up with this previous iteration of Batman was just something we haven't seen on screen, and that's why I was so excited to see that and to see not just what was being teed up, but just in general everything that they had done, um, that hadn't been played out so much. Because how many times? I mean, we've had so many Jokers, we've had so many Catwoman, we've had Penguins, and we've had
That's
Two-Face, we've
one
had
other
all these
thing.
characters in the past that we've already seen, and I was just excited to see some more,
Yeah.
like even characters that are like that, but still in the Gotham verse, like
Mhm.
Killer Croc, and and we're gonna see some of that, I guess, in other like Firefly and other things that are a little more out there than what they've done previously in the movies. But um, I don't know. I just
I'll be honest with you. I'm a little Catwoman out, I think.
can I just
That was
say that, and this is no offense to anybody that has this, but those stiletto nails make me want to throw up. I cannot take them. I can't. It anytime that she had them on, like,
Just rubbing
a
it on his chest.
ugh, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't like long nails, period. But
Clicky
those like
click click click
very
click.
long fake nails,
Scratch.
mm, nope, nope.
Nope, not for Brandon.
I told Melissa that. She
Um,
was like, "Oh yeah, I hated that." I was like, "Yeah, it was great."
um, I, but yeah, going back to your point, like there's a lot of what's disconcerting or annoying right now is kind of the going back to the well approach with Batman, this character, right after the fact that we were about to see this nightmare Batman, like stuff that's like you wouldn't have fathomed seeing in live action with the Batman character you're about to get in live action. But not only are we getting this, which is Dark Knight V.5,
Yeah,
but also like even like the Keatons, like bringing Michael Keaton back as Batman, like that people love those movies. Let's get him back in the fold. Like I don't know. There's just
yeah,
this mentality of like, whatever. We're in such a bad spot. Whatever worked, we got to do that.
yeah, yeah.
It's just never going to
Well,
get anybody anywhere.
nah, that's their MO. What are you gonna do? It is
um,
to be expected, and it's unfortunate because, like we've said this before, we should be excited about Keaton coming back. We should be excited about there being another version of Batman that a director's being able to tell.
yeah,
And I am excited for him. This is the story that he wanted to tell. I just wish it was better.
it just
Um,
feels like I don't know. Like Marvel does this kind. Say they just did No Way Home.
mhm.
It feels like they do it from like an offensive position. With DC,
Yeah, yeah.
it's all defensive.
It's
Like
yeah, it's all retro, like
yeah,
reactive.
yeah.
Um,
Like we gotta do something that works. What can we do? What's worked in the past?
yeah,
um, one other thing I wanted to touch on a little bit was Pattinson as Batman. Um, they spend a lot of time in this movie trying to especially in the beginning, trying to like establish this character as vengeance, but like the kind of imply that he's feared by everybody, like that's committing crime and whatnot. But I just don't like. There's a sequence at the beginning where there's a bunch of goons, and
It's very derivative of The Dark Knight.
Yeah,
you know, like with it's the same setup. It's like, you know, you got a better chance of winning the lotto or than running into him or whatever the line is. When
there's so many moments like that where I was like, okay, Dark Knight, all right, Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins, okay, got it.
Yeah, a lot of that.
But they all these these goons are beating on a guy, and there's just like a shadow walkway, and Pattinson comes walking out. I think it's even in the trailers actually. And he's just at this point, like they even like have these like they add this like metallic click to when he's walking.
He's got spurs on his feet
to give his feet weight. Like it's just, and I'm like, look, I don't see any metal in there. I don't know what's going on there. But
walking across the lawn,
they try. they try so hard to make him feel imposing, and all the camera tricks in the world cannot do it. Not with that suit. Like
not with that suit, especially, and then even, and I know that people say, oh, he did work out. Well, maybe he doesn't. He is.
There is no way. There is no way that Robert Pattinson in this movie, as he is physically, is going to walk out and beat up.
He just doesn't carry himself. That's the thing,
right?
A lot of people, you hear it all the time when people like even with like Ray Fisher, he wasn't gonna have a physical presence. He's mostly a CG character. Like he worked out to have so he could carry himself better. That's a lot of people, you hear that a lot with people that end up, doing these like crazy workout regimes, even if it's all going to be hidden by a suit. There's something to be said about being able to
walk different. Like it's you've got a different air about you, and he just kind of looks like a dude like at Comic-Con who put together a at-home cosplay suit. Like I don't know, it just doesn't. And the cowl and the neck collar brace, whatever,
neck brace.
It just doesn't. It doesn't work. It doesn't accomplish what
we were talking
to accomplish
about like all the close-ups of his cowl that they
really it's like they were like, let's F with Ryan. Let's show this cowl as much as we can, as close as possible.
His little nose flap thing, all the stitching. I don't know. Whenever I saw that they had hired the costume designer from Little Women, I was like, okay, what? Oh, that's interesting. And then saw the costume, and I was like, all right, well, that's a take.
You see, like going back to the sequence at the beginning, like where he's walking out of the shadows. If they had done that, imagine Batman in BVS when he walks out of the rubble at the end of after the Doomsday fight, like if he walks out of there, the prison sequence.
Even the way they introduce him in BVS, whenever in the the building that they're holding,
the girls like scared of him, the demon,
like he's a demon, and he's like he's in, like kind of hanging out up there on the ceiling, and like play like a horror film. This one they introduce him. It's like with no real fanfare. They try to like build it up, but it kind of lands with a thud. Like he's not very menacing looking. I mean, he has that like brutal takedown of that one guy, but it's not anything that we haven't seen. Like as far as, I mean, I don't know. That's
honestly the combat reminded me a lot of the Dark Knight trilogy as well. A lot of like elbows and
better better executed. That was one of the
Oh,
things
yeah.
that
I
Nolan
agree.
always got flack for, was not really being able to film action like that hand to
I just
hand.
mean the like fighting style. Like it felt
Yeah,
like it
yeah,
had
yeah,
that kind of vibe. A lot of
Agreed.
like using their weapons against them and
Right.
that kind of thing.
What is that? Is that like Aikido or something? I can't remember.
For the Dark Knight, it was Casey.
Where's Chris
don't
when you
know.
need him?
Yeah, where is that guy? Did
It's
we
like
ever get
reactive.
an answer to the pens? By the way,
They don't do anything.
I was
They're
looking
just
for it the whole
pens.
movie. And I didn't see anything happen with
Unless that's because that in that sequence, I think that we were just talking about, he like shocks the guy on his face. Maybe that's something to do with how the shocking works. So. But
I don't get it. I don't know why you put those on there.
I don't know. I saw some concept art just before we got on from the book, I guess, that they are putting out. And I was like, man, they should have went with that costume. It's way better than what they did.
Really? You have to send it to me.
Yeah. It's not great, but it's better.
There's something like they really, really needed, and I get they were going for this like super utilitarian costume. Like he wanted to be able to jet around on his bike without his cowl on and like just pop his cowl and cape on and be ready to rock. Like happened several times throughout the movie, and makes sense with kind of like the grounded storyline or world that they're in. But like he desperately needed a like ear to shoulder cowl. Like he needed something to like give him like a little bit more of a, I don't know, build. If they're going for this, if the fear thing wasn't as big of a part of the story and his kind of like character as it was, it'd be whatever. But
yeah,
like if you're backed up by 12 guys and you see that guy walk out of the shadows, you just step on his feet and push him over. Like
yeah, it's not the most menacing. If as far as Batman, if you're wanting people to like see you as a symbol of fear and want people to share my fear, that whole thing, then I feel like you got to do a better job. He looks more like Batmite, especially that cow.
Yeah.
But
also, I don't understand. Like, I get it's this like weird like push and pull thing. Like grounded, it goes back to the grounding thing. Like, okay, grounded. Why has he got a cape? He doesn't use the cape when he for anything.
Not functional at all.
But I just don't get. I don't know. I don't like suspend your belief to the point that I want you to. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know either, Ryan.
Doesn't.
I wish I had an answer for you.
I don't know.
I really do.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like I said, there are and I know that
only thing that happens with his cape is he gets dragged around by it at one point. You should ditch that cape, bro.
Yeah, it's no good. What do you think about Colin Farrell?
So I was a little worried. The trailers, he looked great. I was a little worried to see how like the prosthetics and stuff would play on his face as he was, with more screen time than we get in the trailers. But I was fine with that. Again, he's one of the ones that is a little overacted for me. I'll give him more of a pass than I will for Dano or others, just because like that was a heck of a transformation.
Yeah.
But yeah, he fell victim to the overacting thing a little bit for me at times, like the sweetheart thing, and like I don't know. There's some lines where he just really kind of goes over the top.
Word. Yeah, he didn't really bother. I mean, I enjoyed his performance overall. He's one of the standouts as far as believability and not really pulling me out. But I don't know. I just I can't say the same, especially for Dano and Zoe Kravitz, they were both just, I don't know. And maybe it's just, I haven't seen a ton of Zoe Kravitz stuff, but I have Dano, and I expected more out of him, and I just wasn't impressed with Kravitz.
I don't fully I don't know if she was necessary for the movie, to be honest with you. Like, I understand she served as some connective tissue, but I don't necessarily know if it's something that couldn't have been, I don't know, solved for in writing.
Maybe.
Like, I would have loved to see more sub her character, give me more of Circus and Pattinson, or like even more of Penguin setting up his show. Like, I don't know, more backstory there. I don't know. Again, like I kind of mentioned earlier, I'm a little Catwoman'd out. She's a cool character. But she's never been and this is just me, she's never been super compelling in live action. But I don't know.
I've enjoyed, I mean, as far as, I love the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman.
Well, everybody loves that one. That one's pretty iconic.
And I liked, and
it's kind of a unique take on it though too. Like, it's okay. I'll revise my statement. Grounded Catwoman is not super compelling for me. I get that it serves a love interest kind of thing, but I don't know.
Yeah. Well, she's always been kind of at least on film, she's kind of always played out the role of very kind of the in between of Bruce and whoever he's going up against. She's always like kind of skirts the line of hero and vigilante, and
she didn't really do much of that in this one though. She was just kind of served her own purpose, but she wasn't a bad, kind of didn't really have any like allegiances or anything.
Yeah, but she was involved in that underbelly, the Gotham underbelly, to a degree, with the drops.
Yeah,
that whole thing. But yeah, I don't know, man.
I was really hoping that this was going to be a like pump up kind of.
I expected it to. I really did. I wasn't. Well, and I know that
I was expecting to walk out thinking it was a great movie. I was afraid that it was going to be just wrapped in Batman, but it turned out to just be a man movie, and it was just wrapped in Batman.
Yeah, I know that people would say, "Oh, well, they're just they're butthurt Snyder fans, and they didn't like it because of that only." And I wish that were the case. As far as like I wish that was the excuse. I wish that was the.
I wish I was butthurt.
Because I wanted to love this movie, and I kept wanting this movie to impress me and make me love it. And I knew that wasn't gonna. It wasn't gonna win me over with the suit, but everything else, we've talked about it in previous episodes. Like we knew that we were gonna this is gonna be a great movie. We're gonna have issues with the suit, but everything else is gonna probably be a blast and be really great. But it just didn't land. But
I will totally admit that the suit thing for me is a huge deal. Especially for a character like this. That's why it was such a bummer when I saw the suit, the original teaser or whatever. Like, there's a lot of moments in The Dark Knight, or Batman Begins specifically, I guess, and like BVS, where the suit is kind of its own character, and really goes towards creating emphasis, building emphasis on top of whatever the character is saying or doing. Like, it's kind of like a steroid injection for whatever emotion that they're trying to portray. Like, it's a valuable weapon, and I feel like the suit just sucked. I feel like it like dragged everything down when he was on screen.
Yeah,
there's it's a like it's so distracting.
Yeah.
It's very distracting.
It's just, yeah, it's unfortunate because it's such a hodgepodge of a suit, and I get that there's probably this, they don't really address the story element with it, but you just have to make an assumption that, oh, he's just kind of piecing this thing together. But even that, like, he's got tech.
He's got his freaking like eye lenses that record and register facial
yeah.
You couldn't have gone like a little bit more high tech than stitching some leather on your cowl.
Yeah. It just doesn't. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to continue to. We harp on it every time we record.
Yeah.
But yeah. It just doesn't.
It's an important part of the character, man. Like,
no, it's true.
I don't know.
It's true.
To its detriment in this one, unfortunately.
Yeah.
For me.
Because I mean,
there's a lot of people that love it. That's what's shocking to me.
This is probably the most, as far, and that is kind of going back to what you're saying. He is Batman the most out of any other Batman movie. Like, he's in the suit most of the time in this movie, so you're always looking at it.
Yeah,
and it's
you are
never good.
Up close most of the time.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Well, Black Adam comes out in a few months.
We'll get some other guys on here once people have had time to see it.
Alan, we'll get Alan on here. He loves everything. All right.
Yeah.
He's gonna love it.
Yep. So you'll have
get Britt on here. He'll say some stuff that doesn't really make any sense because he doesn't watch DC, and we'll kind of just give him a pass. But
he'll bring some memes.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Maybe some animations.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else you want to touch on?
Nah, I mean, if you made it this far and you haven't seen it, I mean, like I said, we've tried our best to not spoil it. I don't know what we could spoil, to be honest. But I would still, like anything, I would encourage people to go see it. Don't
have your own opinion. Yeah, for sure.
Because it does have its merits. I mean, and even despite
the majority of people seem to be loving this movie.
Yeah.
So give it a go.
Yep.
All right. Well, we will be back on Thursday for CiNEMAChiNE, and then we'll pick up kind of talking about this movie and all other geek news on Tuesday evening of next week. Before we check out here, I will say hit the subscribe button here on YouTube and notification bell so you can stay up to date on all the videos we're putting out. We are on Twitter at CapeCast Show, and we have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/CiNEMAChinePod. Appreciate all the support that we get there.
Indeed.
Well, Brandon.
Yes, sir.
I enjoyed the evening watching this.
I did too. It was good to see you.
Yeah, for sure. Good sushi.
I'm glad that I have you in life.
Yeah.
So
Melissa's glad too.
More than you know.
All right, sir. Until next time.
So long.